explain to me the relationship between the number of chips and the success of one of these models.
Well, we're talking massive amount of data and very complex learning and machine learning algorithm that takes an immense amount of GPU and electricity to generate. And so the bigger the chips, the faster you can train models. The faster you train models, the more quickly you can release the next generation models. You just saw last week OpenAI with O3 Mini release their latest models, which is far superior, by the way, to any other model. These models, took months to update and generate. But if you had, older chips and less chips, it would actually take even longer. So it's just a matter of velocity and speed to deliver the latest capabilities the faster. So effectively, these companies are investing in infrastructure that enables them to release their next generation models faster and faster. And it's a never ending game because the GPUs keep getting, better and more efficient. And so you have to buy new hardware, and, all that money spent, with NVIDIA chips is then used to train the models.
Tell me very quickly, how is it that you know that they didn't use this low amount of computing power that they claim?
It's pretty obvious when you look at the research that, first of all, $5-6 million investment is just plain ridiculous. But really, at the end of the day, that's what the CCP does, right? They lie about every number on the planet. And so, when you see all that access to these beefier chips, and when you look at the background and the knowledge of the people behind DeepSeek, it's pretty obvious to anyone that they know what they're doing and they have access to a pretty much unlimited amount of compute and also funding. And so, when you see the numbers just don't lie, and the CCP does.
So, Nick, you said that they trained, if I understand correctly, DeepSeek on the benchmarks themselves to kind of give it the appearance of being more sophisticated than it actually was. Can you expand on that a little bit, please, if I'm right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is doing that now that the benchmarks are public, right? It's pretty easy to pass a test when you know what the test is about. And so they're going to spend extra time and extra focus on trying to get as good a result on these questions as possible. And so it's easy to cheat a test. It's less likely to make it happen when you have real life scenarios. That's the way we test models, and we don't make those tests public because the minute you do, you lose all that advantage of surprise.
So the bottom line is, they launched this thing and kind of wowed the world, wowed the markets, wowed users. But then when you look under the hood, it's really not nearly what it appeared.
It's not. I mean, it's not. Don't get me wrong. They still had very good outcomes when it came to the training methods, and they did come up with ways to be more efficient and save money. And there's definitely value there. Of course, the fact that it's the CCP behind it and biased and with a bunch of made up answers, that kind of kills the entire value, in my opinion, because how are you going to trust it? Even in math, even in research, you have, they could train it in a way that, if you ask a question in English, you get answers that are not as good as if you were to ask it in Chinese, for example. That would be easy to do. So again, I would never trust it. And so that defeat the point of using it. The numbers and the benchmarks and the amount of money that they spent to train it is completely made up. And I don't believe it in 1 second. And it might certainly not be as much money as, we spent on OpenAI O3 or O1, but it's still way more than they're claiming, 1,000 times more.
So when you left the Air Force, when you left being the software chief over there back in 2021, I think when around the time when we first spoke on online, you said you believed that the US has really lost the war or on the cusp of losing the war in AI. But you sound more optimistic today.
So it's always interesting. I always said that the U.S. was doing very well, but the DoD was losing, and I think that's something that's it's a little detail that's being lost in translation with my French accent often, and I think that's the most important fact. What you see is the CCP adopting at incredible amount of velocity and speed their latest, Beidou GPT and DeepSeek models, and even the new Alibaba models into their military networks at scale across classification levels on very complex weapon systems. And while the models are less good and less capable than the U.S. models, unfortunately, the U.S. has a massive wall and lack of adoption of the best of breed US capabilities into the Department of Defense. And so what you end up seeing is the US leading compared to China when it comes to companies, but when it comes to defense, which is quite honestly the most important use of AI we could think about in 2025 and beyond, you see DoD being at least 5 years behind China. And it's compounding by the fact that these models augment and empower the velocity of people up to 20 to 50x. So one person turning into 50 people. And let's face it, the CCP already has more people. And now if they turn these people to 50 times more, thanks to being augmented and empowered by AI, it's almost impossible to compete, particularly if you don't have access to AI capabilities. And so where I'm very concerned is the amount of money spent, particularly during the Biden administration, for 4 years on AI ethics and other, massive amount of money wasted by research teams building their own DoD capabilities like Nipper GPT that just, are years behind what you see companies do and really push us even further behind China.
So, how does DeepSeek compare with TikTok in terms of a threat?
Number one, DeepSeek has clearly used data coming from TikTok to train itself. So it's interesting how, that access to data is paying off. As you know, the next weapons, particularly AI weapons, are all driven by data. And so the more data you have, the more powerful weapons can become. And, it's foolish to give the CCP access to all that TikTok data. And so you see some of the results here with DeepSeek having access to all that data. It's very similar, right, to the risk and the threats of TikTok. I was disappointed when I saw that Americans were downloading Chinese apps the minute TikTok got banned, and seem not to understand what we're facing. And I think there's a lack of education when it comes to the threats and the risk, that the CCP is bringing, not just to your data, but also your family and the nation as a whole. And most people, think, oh, I have nothing to hide and I don't care if China sees my stuff. But it goes beyond that. And people don't comprehend how China is able to use that data to then understand better the population to create political weapons of misinformation and just like manipulating markets. A perfect example is DeepSeek announcement, right? The way they were able to disrupt $500 billion of market cap in a day, and shorting the stock and making a whole bunch of money at the same time with really nothing to back it up, just noise and completely manipulating the market. That's scary, right? Because if they get good enough to manipulate the entire market, in the United States and Europe, that's going to become a real threat to the economy of the nations. And they are doing that by understanding how to communicate and how to position messaging to Americans. And there's no better way than seeing how people react to videos and information on TikTok and other apps, because they can see what works and what doesn't work and how people respond to those videos and data points. And that's then used to do these kind of campaigns, that can completely, destroy the economy of the United States.
Unbelievable. Nick, one thing that just struck me, right? It was so weird somehow that all these users, when TikTok was going down, were jumping to a kind of overtly Communist Party app, named that way even. And it just struck me, was this not just kind of a demonstration by the CCP of being able to, subtly influence through TikTok, through messaging, through finding the people that are most susceptible to be influenced this way, to go to that specific app? I mean, it just struck me that isn't this itself, kind of the case study of how people can be manipulated? I mean, I saw videos of young people saying, it's amazing. People have housing in China. Almost everybody has it. We've been lied to all along. It's such a horrible country. Just kind of wild stuff on the face of it. But it just seemed so unlikely and bizarre that they would be running to this, Red Note app. What are your thoughts?
Well, you can see right away the impact of letting our kids for the last, we started calling for the ban of TikTok in 2018 and so on. And that's what happens after 6 years of brainwashing. You see the effect right there. And you're 100% right. A lot of people are now completely brainwashed, not just on the CCP in China, but also on other dozens of subjects. You look at Palestine and what's going on, and how much more hateful messages you can find, anti-Semit messages you can find on TikTok. And that's not an accident. That's designed, into the system. And it's always shocked me that, people would use something that is banned in China, but yet is allowed, elsewhere. And China is smart enough to know the damage it would cause to their kids, and they don't let people in their own nation use it. But yet, we're stupid enough to let that happen.